Testing, testing. Can you hear us?
Yes.
This is Rick Dennison. I can hear you.
Laguna Woods can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to, before I call this meeting to order, I want to cover a few things. Today is Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. And prior to calling the meeting to order, I would ask members who are calling in by phone to identify themselves. And as a reminder, if a member of this body is attending remotely, but is not at the location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member decisions or voting of this body. The meeting of the Energy and Environment Committee, I will say, is there anyone that is calling in remotely that on phones that need to be identified? Staff, do we have?
See any, Ms.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right, then I would like to call this meeting of the Energy and Environment Committee, call it to order for this morning. And I would start by
pressing star 6. You have been added to the waiting. You are mute.
No, it's coming to both.
all right, let's hopefully, that's a good piece to wake us up this morning, huh? Nothing like audio and technology. Okay. So I would ask if I could call on a member right now to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And Daniel, you look like you're dead in my eyes yet, ready to go. So would you please be so kind?
Join us to salute our beautiful flag. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Okay. Now, could I ask the clerk, do you feel we could have confirmed a quorum?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So again, we are holding this meeting in compliance with Brown Act rules relating to telephonic video conference meetings. SCAG's office are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. Just a reminder, to reduce background noise, which we've already experienced, please ensure that your microphone is muted when not in use. And now I'm opening for public comment period. And this is the time that any member of the public can offer comments for matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction, but not listed on the agenda. Have we received any written public comments?
Madam Chair, we have not received any comments.
Okay, have we received, and no written comments after the deadline, which was 5 p.m. on Wednesday, yesterday, November 1st. Okay, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak at this time?
Madam Chair, I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, well then I will now close the public comment period for matters that are not listed on the agenda. Why don't we look at the agenda, and if all items been prioritized, is there anyone who would like to change anything at this time? Nope. Good. Again, I would like to remind everyone to unmute your phone before speaking and state your name during the deliberation and whether making a motion or offering a second. For those who have joined us by phone, press *6 to mute and unmute your phone. So now we will look at the consent calendar. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any of these items?
Madam Chair, I don't see any raised hands.
Margaret, I see she has her.
Yes, I spoke with Maggie already about it. I want just a minor correction on what I said when we were talking about the sustainability and the fact that the bills, the housing bills that are coming down from Sacramento, some of them do not have requirements for large yards. Very small yards are minimum. So the developers are going to do the minimum because they make more money off. But I don't want all that said. I just want where it says may only require small yard setbacks. The housing bills coming from the state government may only require small yard setbacks, and that could impede the tree canopy development. That's all I want that emphasized if we can.
Okay,
So I'll give this to her after the meeting if that's okay.
Madam Chair, and that would be for the minutes. So
Okay.
she'd like the
Yeah,
minutes
she's making
reflected to
reference to-
supervise.
yeah,
She made me
we're on
aware of it.
minutes, I'm
we
sorry.
had comments and, okay, thank you. All right, duly noted. Any other items on consent? If anyone wants to pull anything, please let's do it now. And if not, I would entertain a motion, a vote for the consent calendar.
I'll move with the correction to the minutes.
Okay.
Adelanto seconds.
Margaret has moved to accept the consent with the corrections that she's noted in the minutes, and member Daniel Ramos has seconded. And would you like to do roll call?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin roll call. Damon Alexander,
Present.
okay, just as a reminder, this is for the roll call. Anna Beltran,
I'm sorry. Aye.
It's a mo.
thank you. Anna Beltran. Art Bishop,
Yes.
Phil Brock. Margaret Clark.
Yes.
Thank you. Margaret Clark.
Yes.
Robert Copeland,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite. Jenny Crosswhite.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Maria Davia. Ned Davis,
Yes.
Rick Dennison,
Dennison, yes.
Sherry Horn.
Horn, yes.
Thank you. Dan Kalmick.
Aye.
Thank you. Joe Kalmick,
Aye.
Elaine Litzer,
Yes.
Elaine Litzer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Lauren Meister,
Yes.
Oscar Ortiz,
Yes.
Luis Blancarte,
Blancarte, yes.
Daniel Ramos,
Ramos, yes.
Deborah Robertson,
Yes.
Nick Schultz,
Yes.
Jennifer Stark,
Yes.
Connor Trout,
Yes.
Dale Wiltie,
Yes.
Edward Wilson, Edward Wilson, Okay, thank you. One moment, let me tabulate it. Madam Chair, the motion passes with 22 yeses, 0 nos, and 0 abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we're going to move into action items, and we will move into item number 5, and that will be authorization to release the Connect SoCal 2024 Draft Program Environmental Impact Report. And I believe Karen is going to be doing the presentation. Karen Calderon, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Gotta get this to the right height. I'm very, very happy and excited to be here today. It is a big day for me and my team. After many long nights, past a year worth of works and weekend works and phone calls in the middle of the night, but we're finally here with my team behind me, ready to seek your recommendation for RC to release the draft EIR. Did I introduce myself? My name is Karen Calderon, and I'm the project manager for the Connect SoCal 2024 Draft Program Environmental Impact Report, which for your sake and mine, we will refer to as the PEIR. So I want to take a quick minute to really thank my team, because I'm standing here today, but really it's been a big team effort. Ryan Banuelos is my deputy project manager, and he's really been my right-hand man throughout all of this. And Legion Sun is the SECO program manager, and she's been an incredible asset in the strategic thinking and planning for the EIR, the staff reports, and really a quiet leader throughout this process. So I want to thank her and my supervisor, Rong Sheng, as well as the consultants, which are ESA, Wendy Lockwood, and Pat Chen is our outside legal counsel, who have really worked together to make this the best document that it can be. We've really raised the bar, I believe, for the quality of the EIR, and of course, made sure that it complied with all of the CEQA requirements. So today, I'm going to give you a quick reminder of what those requirements are and walk through the process that got us to this point. I'm also going to present a summary of the draft contents and conclusion, and ultimately seek your formal recommendation to release the draft EIR. So why do we do this in the first place? SCAG is required to evaluate and disclose potential environmental impacts from plan implementation. And we've been doing this for a very long time, since 2012 with the first RTP-SES. We've developed an accompanying program EIR. And this is different from your typical project level EIR in that the analysis is a lot higher level at a regional scale for this document, with the objective of mitigating and avoiding significant impacts. And this slide is meant to provide a summary of the PIR development process. It started before this. We've given EEC multiple CEQA 101 presentations back in 2022, but we formally kicked off the process when the EEC authorized the release of the NOP in October of 2022. And that triggered a period of public scoping, tribal consultation, and we wrapped up all of our public outreach requirements in January of 2023, this year, pursuant to CEQA and AB 52. But we didn't stop there. We went above and beyond through presentations, both here, staff reports, and through SCAG working groups and other key stakeholders. And we've provided a summary of the outreach efforts in your staff report. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we really tried our best to outreach often, outreach early, and with a purpose. And that purpose was to seek valuable feedback, which we were able to consider and incorporate into the document as appropriate. And building upon all of that, as well as the 3 previous PIRs that SCAG has developed. We came up with a set of approaches, which we shared with you back in April. I'm going to provide a quick recap of those approaches as they are the final approaches used in the PIR. So for the environmental setting and environmental impact analysis, we were really traditional in our approach and really stuck to what's outlined in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines. For CEQA mitigation measures and alternatives, here's where we tailor the approach a little bit to match the programmatic nature and uniqueness of our document. For CEQA mitigation measures, we continue to bifurcate commitments for environmental commitments between SCAG and project level mitigation measures. And this bifurcation allows us to meet our CEQA obligations, but also builds in the flexibility that's needed, acknowledging our role, our limited authority, and the long-term nature and scope of our project. New to this cycle, we've incorporated the regional planning policies and implementation strategies that the plan developed as plan features in our EIR. So the plan did a great job at presenting these environmental commitments in our project. So we were able to capture those efforts as plan features this time, which is a form of mitigation. Additionally, we removed project level mitigation that was a repetition of what's already required by state and local agencies. So we didn't see a need to double down on mitigation measures that were already requirements. For our alternatives approach, we took a what we call a bookend approach, and it's really meant to gauge the greatest range of impacts compared to the plan. So on one end, we have the no project alternative, and that analyzes a future without the plan. And we did that quantitatively. And then on the other end, we had intensified land use alternative. So our stakeholders called this the plan on steroids. And it really looks at a future with a more concentrated land use pattern than what's forecasted in the plan. So there's a range of alternatives that can fall within these ranges, but the idea is that by looking at the two extremes, we're able to capture that in our analysis. The EIR itself is going to be 7 chapters along with 12 appendices and the executive summary. And there's more information in the July staff report, which is linked here and in your agenda packet. But overall, it's a very large document, over 1,000 pages, which is not atypical for an EIR. We have over 10,000 pages in technical appendices. And that's because we were very transparent. We attached our modeling outputs and really tried to streamline the EIR to take all the technical details out and put those in appendices. So it's still there if you want to see it, but it didn't bog down the actual analysis. The structure should look and feel very typical for an EIR, with chapter 3 containing most of the analysis. And it is outlined and structured to match Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines. So what did we find? As I mentioned, the purpose of the EIR is to analyze and disclose potential environmental impacts. And we did that by looking at the 20 CEQA topics that are outlined in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines and presented in this table. These are not topics that we picked. These are topics that we are required to analyze. And they include, each of these topics includes a list of questions. So it's 20 topics, but it's over 200 questions, hence the 10,000 page document. And we analyze what the potential impacts for the plan are for each of these questions. And after we conduct the analysis, we consider the need for mitigation. And given the magnitude and scale of our project, there is always a need for mitigation. So after we incorporate the mitigation, we have a determination or a conclusion. And in all cases, we determined that the impacts could still be significant and unavoidable, even after mitigation. There's variations to that conclusion depending on the CEQA question, but ultimately the logic is that given the size, long-range nature of the plan, SCAG's limited authority for implementing project-level mitigation measures, and the unknown details of a lot of our potential projects, the PIR concludes significant and unavoidable impacts could occur to all 20 CEQA topic areas. This is a conservative conclusion, but very reasonable given the size and magnitude of our project. And it's also consistent with what we've done in previous EIR, as well as other large-scale EIRs for other lead agencies. So we're currently still finalizing the draft EIR, and we're still preparing the CEQA noticing that accompanies draft release, but we're here today to seek the same day recommendation and authorization from RC to release the draft PIR on November 9th, which is next Thursday, a week from now. That would allow for a 65-day CEQA public comment period, which is 20 days longer than the minimum requirements. The comment period would close on January 12th, same day as the plan. And we're hoping when we receive the feedback to make the appropriate revisions and then come back to you with a proposed final EIR in March and seek final certification in April. So with that, I am excited to present you with staff recommended action, and I will open the floor to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Well, first off, let's see. Do we have any members of the public who was wanting to speak on this item?
I see no raised hands.
None? Okay. And now how about members from the floor, the EEC? Any comments? Okay, good morning, Lauren.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, with all of this significant impacts that you're expecting, are there proposed mitigations for all of those?
Yes, for every single one.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions, comments?
I see no raised hands.
All right. Well, just to follow up on that, the proposed mitigations are there. And my question would be, I have it on. I see that we have the timeline, but now will there be any more outreach, or we just will be putting the activity out there and then hoping that people will make their own comments, or will there be some more discussions or opportunities for people to have any kind of workshops?
Yeah, the idea is to have the document be released at this point, and we're going to seek opportunities. There won't be specific PIR workshops, but we are looking for opportunities to piggyback on the workshops that the plan is providing, to have some combined areas where we could seek feedback.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, the action before us is basically looking for EEC to promotion. This is an action item, so would anyone like to put the motion forward?
Madam Chair, I'll move.
Okay, it's been moved by member Daniel Ramos Alanto.
Well,
I'll second.
Meister.
Okay, I got 2 seconds. Okay, well, I think she deferred to you. So I can't see the name of it, your city, but Santa Monica. Okay, so with that, we have a motion by Ramos and Phil. Second, Madam, roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin roll call. Damon Alexander. Damon Alexander.
Okay.
Anna Beltran. Art Bishop.
Art Bishop, yes.
Phil Brock.
Yes.
Margaret Clark.
Yes.
Robert Copeland.
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite.
Crosswhite, yes.
Ned Davis.
Davis, aye.
Rick Dennison.
Dennison, yes.
Sherry Horn.
Horn, yes.
Dan Kelmick,
Aye.
Joe Kelmick,
Yes.
Elaine Litzer,
Yes.
Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Lauren Meister,
Yes.
Oscar Ortiz,
Yes.
Luis Blancarte,
Blancarte, yes.
Daniel Ramos,
Ramos, yes.
Deborah Robertson,
Robertson, yes.
Nick Schultz,
Yes.
Jennifer Stark,
Yes.
Connor Trout,
Yes.
Dale Welty,
Yes.
Edward Wilson. Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, the vote passes with 19 yeses, no, 0 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay, the next item that we have on the agenda is a presentation. This is an informational item. Presentation by Ms. Christine Knapp, who is our Community Innovation and Technical Assistant Program Manager for Department of Energy. And I would like to just make a few opening comments. Hopefully she's online. As you know, a lot of us wear multiple hats. And 2 weeks ago, we had a convening, kind of a quick meeting with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I co-chair the Water Council, and they had called a meeting specifically for us to hear from EPA and Department of Energy and the Treasury Department, because you well know, there's a lot of resources that need to be rolled out by way of the Treasury Department. I guess I'd say is the ARPA funds, but quite a bit. I had the pleasure of co-chairing the second day meeting, and the Department of Energy was kind enough to do a presentation. It was so much information of things that are available, and the way the Department of Energy has kind of restructured the pathway to make sure that resources are not only going to be flowing from the feds to the states, but directly to municipalities. And so I came back, and I just want to give special kudos to Ryan for recognizing my sense of urgency, because there was some deadline dates, some of them coming up next week, if I'm not mistaken, unless the Department of Energy extends them. And I really felt that this needed to be before our group. The Chief of Staff, Mr. Castro, did the presentation, and I believe Christine was with him. They did a nice dual presentation. At the end of it, my question to Mr. Castro was, my only question is, do you know how to use Zoom? Because I said, we are the largest MPO in the nation, and we have 191 cities. And I'm going to ask Christine when she comes on to restate, they had put out a request for technical assistance, if I'm not mistaken, and they were excited that I think 2 states and a couple of cities had actually took them up on that offer. Technical assistance is probably one of the things that a lot of us in our smaller communities sorely need. They will help you with writing grants. So I just wanted to say thank you to Brian and to Sarah and everybody who helped to make this happen. I hope this presentation will be as exciting to you as it was to me. So with that, Christine, are you on?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
There you are. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for the welcome and for the invitation to be here. I am going to share my screen since we do have a lot of slides and programs to share with you all. Let me just get that into presentation mode. Oh, it skipped forward a couple of slides for some reason. Can you see that?
We usually have just a momentary delay, so there you go. It's up now.
Okay, it's up now. Great. Great. So again, thank you for the invitation and for the introduction. I'm Christine Knapp. I'm the Community Innovation and Technical Assistance Program Manager in the Office of State and Community Energy Programs. By way of very quick background, I've been with DOE for about a year. I started last September. And before that, I was the Director of Sustainability for the City of Philadelphia for about 7 years. So I'm coming from local government, and very much understand. I was actually the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Philadelphia Water Department, so I actually did water work and energy work and a lot of sustainability work at the local level. So I'm excited to be at DOE and to be able to work with folks who are doing the work on the ground, like I know you're doing, to try to get you the funding, the technical assistance, the resources that you need to be more successful and to move projects ahead urgently. So I also say up front that these slides we can make available to everyone, so you don't need to take a lot of notes. We will share this around since there is a lot of information. The other note I usually start with is it is an overwhelming amount of information. There are a lot of programs, and so we're here to help sort through them with you to understand which ones are a better fit, to understand which ones are coming up on an annual basis, which ones are just a one-time sort of bite at the apple. And we are trying to make these make more sense. You know, if you had said, here's SCEP office, here's a bunch of money, create some programs to serve communities, we might have organized it a little differently, but instead we have a lot of different funding coming from a lot of different sources, from different budget pots with different goals in mind, different audiences in mind, right? So we're trying to now make this make a little bit more sense and be a little bit more approachable. So that work is still ongoing. We don't have it perfectly organized yet, but that is our work ahead. So would love your feedback as well about how to do that and how to make navigating all of these resources a little simpler for you, since we know that is a challenge. So just to pull back from the start, you know, this administration recognizes the immense challenge that climate change poses to the country, but also the immense opportunity that it presents in terms of creating new jobs and driving the economy, as well as improving public health and righting the wrongs that environmental justice issues have created all over the country. So the administration has really big near and long-term climate and clean energy goals, including reducing emissions by at least 50% by 2030, moving to 100% clean electricity and net zero emissions by 2050. And if you, like me, at a local government level, when we were doing our Philadelphia Climate Action Plan, hitting our 2050 goals were near impossible without having this commitment of the clean electricity grid from the federal government. Once the federal government made that commitment, our modeling and our projection showed that was a lot more possible. So we're all hopefully now moving in closer lockstep towards the same goals. In the last several years, you've probably seen 3 enormous steps towards meeting these goals. The Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the CHIPS and Science Act. And so, you know, the Department of Energy is right in the midst of all 3 of these sort of huge, immense actions to address climate change and grow our economy, create good jobs, to the tune of about $100 billion in grants and rebates and $250 billion in loans and loan guarantees that are now at the Department of Energy in all of the issues that you can see on the sides here. So everything from hydrogen, you probably just saw big announcements about hydrogen hubs, to grid upgrades, to workforce development, supply chains, et cetera. There's a lot of work that is needed to meet these goals across a variety of different issue areas. So SCEP was created, the Office of State and Community Energy Programs was created as part of a new restructuring in the Department of Energy, and really in recognition that the department has historically really been about research and development and a little bit of deployment. And now these new billions of dollars are very much about on the ground deployment and partnership with communities in a way that DOE has not historically done before. So a new undersecretary for infrastructure was created. And within that new undersecretary's purview, a new Office of State and Community Energy Programs was created just about a year ago. So we're still a new office and still getting our feet under us. Our mission is really doing that work with state, local, and tribal governments and community organizations to deploy equitable clean energy solutions on the ground, with about $16 billion in a mix of formula and competitive grants, as well as technical assistance and other resources. So that brings us to, here's a little bit of a snapshot of the size of the different programs that we have under our purview. So rebates, weatherization assistance program, which many people are familiar with. It's a long-standing program. So a mix of old and new. The state energy program, also something that's been around for a long time, that's in our shop now. And then bringing back some things that you may have seen before, like EECBG, which was last funded about 12 years ago, as well as new programs around workforce training and energy codes, et cetera. So I'm going to go through some of these in a little bit more detail in the coming slides. And again, happy to answer questions that you all may have about any of these. I mentioned EECBG. Certainly the biggest Department of Energy program in terms of the number of communities that receive grants through this formula allocation. Over 2,700 total recipients, including all the states and territories, 1,800 local governments, over 700 tribes, reaching about 258 million Americans. So again, by far the biggest program in terms of its total reach. With 431 million in that formula grant and another 8.8 million in competitive funding. In addition to the funding, we are providing a variety of technical assistance resources to EECBG recipients. So there's a lot of words here, but we're really trying to build up the capabilities and capacity of the recipients in moving their projects ahead. So we have blueprints, which are sort of models of successful projects that we think funding could be used well for and has already received some level of pre-review and approval, as well as blueprint cohorts. So if you're working on one particular blueprint model type, let's say you want to work on a solarized campaign, we'll put you in a cohort with others who are working on a solarized campaign so you can learn from each other. We can bring in experts. We can share resources with you about how to do that solarized campaign well. We're working with TICTACs, which are technical assistance centers focusing on environmental justice communities, one in each of the 17 EPA regions to provide direct support and capacity building to environmental justice communities and local governments. We're running a fellowship program to place DOE-sponsored staff in some of our host EECBG sites to increase their local capacity to deliver. We actually are just selecting our first 10 recipients, and we'll have another round later in the spring to kind of build that up, as well as an Arctic Ambassadors program for the Arctic region to have staffing sort of up in that region of the country. We have support for folks when they're applying if they don't have their energy efficiency and conservation strategy, which you need to have to apply and submit your paperwork for EECBG. So NREL will provide you for 10 to 20 hours of free support in pulling together your strategy. So you don't have to spend your dollars building your strategy. You can go have your strategy built for you and use your funds for implementation. We're providing a variety of other webinars and trainings and fielding other technical assistance requests as well through a large contract that we have that folks will be able to take advantage of to really customize the support that you need. So in short, if you are an EECBG recipient community, please apply, please get your paperwork in, and then please take a look at what resources we have for you and what we don't have that you might need and let us know. We want to continually be responsive to those needs. If you're a community that is not receiving a formula allocation, your state is, and states are required to subgrant 60% of the funds they receive to communities that did not receive a formula allocation. So please be in touch with your states to understand how they plan on regranting and what issues they plan on using those funds to support so that you can make sure you're getting access to those funds as well. And similarly, once you do, you can also take advantage of the technical assistance resources. I did mention, and I'll just point out quickly that we did have a EECBG competitive application as well. These were for communities that were not eligible to get a formula allocation. So they went through a competitive application process, and we just announced those winners about 2 weeks ago. There is one in Albany, California. So we're excited to work with them on a gas decommissioning project in their community. And all information about that is on our website if you want to learn more. Moving into a different program, they're actually combined two programs. We call it Renew America's Schools and Renew America's Nonprofits, two sort of areas of opportunity that have historically not received a lot of direct funding. So about $500 million available for schools and $50 million available for nonprofits. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, the first round for the schools application, we received over $4 billion in requests for funding. So this is an area where there is a lot of need in school districts to improve those buildings, as well as in nonprofits. We know that that is the case. So the first round of the schools were announced just about a month and a half ago. So you can see where they are around the country. There will be additional rounds of this in the future. So if you work with your school district or your Board of Education or those types of entities, please let them know about future rounds to help support school modernization and upgrades. The nonprofits program also just announced its first round one winners, which is essentially sending money through 9 nonprofit organizations who will then collaborate with additional partners to implement energy improvement projects at about 300 nonprofit buildings around the country. So it's sort of a down select to those 9, and then they will work with those 300 or so buildings to actually do the implementation. And this will also have another round in the near future. So be aware for other nonprofit organizations that you work with. Energy Futures Grants is a new program in SCEP that is actually not funded by the Infrastructure Bill or Inflation Reduction Act. This is actually in our base annual budget. So this one will hopefully continue to be funded year over year, long after some of the hot moments of the bill and IRA funding kind of pass over. Energy Futures Grants is really both focused on place-based innovation and teaming between the variety of partners that are often needed to develop really innovative and scalable projects across the 3 big sectors of carbon emissions. There's $27 million available in this program right now, and we extended the deadline. It was originally due in late September. It's now due to November 10th, which is in 8 days. So I know that's tight, but this again will be an annual program. So keep this one on your radar if you're not quite ready to apply this year. Energy improvements in rural and remote areas is run by a different office called the Office of Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, or OCED. And this is really to focus on projects in rural and remote areas, those areas with fewer than 10,000 residents, to increase efficiency and the cost effectiveness of their energy generation, transmission, and distribution lines. There's a lot of money here, about $1 billion. There was a prize associated with this, as well as a full grant application. So the deadline for the first round passed this past summer. The next round will likely be in this coming summer. So for those of you who work in more rural and remote areas, please keep your eye on the next round for this program. We do have a prize currently open right now, and prizes are sort of a newer mechanism that DOE has to deploy funds out to communities rather than the traditional funding opportunity announcement. If you've seen those FOAs, as we call them before, they're often very long and complicated and require a lot of information to be submitted to apply to them. Prizes are usually a little bit simpler and more streamlined, so it's something that you'll likely be seeing more of. They work a little bit differently because you have to do something to win a prize. So that you see here that with that image that there's sort of concept and progress and impact, and there's money given at different stages across the concept development. This prize has 3 different tracks, and all but the collegiate one are open for local governments to participate in, and those are due in February. So a good amount of time there for you to take a look at this one and think about whether your community has a desire to sort of work on building energy efficiency and clean energy strategies, particularly to serve underserved communities that you work with. So this is a great one to take a look at as well. As far as grid resilience, that we have a new Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnership Program, or GRIP for short, that has about a really big funding amount here, $10 billion to enhance grid flexibility and resiliency. And what's nice about this, coming from a local government perspective, I understand that you normally don't have a lot of control over your grid, right? You have grid operators and your utilities, et cetera. But there are opportunities here to work on things like resilience hubs in your community, anything that's overall improving resilience and grid reliability. Battery storage, microgrids are generally things that are allowable within this program. This one has also closed, but another second round of funding is anticipated in the coming fiscal year, which just started this October. So take a look at this one if you're interested in grid and resilience issues. This is the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation is a collaboration between the Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation around electric vehicles. And they're really the focus on building out this national network of EV charging stations, especially with the focus on rural and disadvantaged and harder to reach locations, where if you happen to be driving through and you need to charge, it's certainly an issue that we need to address. And so there's about $2.5 billion here for local governments to install public-facing EV charging. And so we're really excited to be working with DOT on this. There's a website there that you can visit for more information and opportunities as those get issued by the joint office. Communities Leap is a technical assistance program that is a cross collaboration between about 9 Department of Energy offices to help facilitate communities in deploying clean energy work and doing some of the early building block planning and strategy development work needed. So the communities that are selected receive really in-depth and customized technical assistance over a 12 to 18-month period, primarily provided by NREL, but with other subcontractors as helpful. And we have an open opportunity to participate in this program right now that closes December 14th. So we're really encouraging you to consider this one. The eligible applicant teams must be a local community, local government and a community-based organization applying together. So if you're a local government, find a community-based organization you'd like to work with that you want to advance some good projects with, and come to us and tell us what the technical assistance needs are that you have in your community. And we will customize a program that works for you and gets you where you want to be. And then lastly, I have 2 programs that are coming soon. The Local Government Energy Program. This is also an annual base budget program. So this one will exist hopefully again year over year as long as Congress continues to fund it. And this is focused more on small to medium-sized jurisdictions, disadvantaged communities, and energy communities, with a focus on not only providing grant funds, but technical assistance, on-site capacity, and peer exchanges as well. So this is coming in 2024, as well as the Building Energy Codes program, which has $1 billion to support local governments that have code-making authority in either adopting the latest building codes in their community or equivalent, or adopting zero energy codes. So that also can include things like building performance standards for existing buildings. So this is not just codes for new buildings, but can include equivalent, which means that it could be also building performance standards. So there is a good amount of funding that is coming here to support local governments in providing technical assistance as well in adopting and implementing new code programs. And that is coming soon as well. Okay, so those are the programs. I have just a few more pieces of awareness that we love to give. One is just for consumers. We know your local governments, but if you want to make sure that your residents are aware of all the new tax credits that are available to them, it's really helpful to have local governments be spreading that word around appliances and home improvements, clean energy tools like solar panels and batteries, as well as clean vehicles. We have launched a new part of our website that's called the Energy Savings Hub for consumers to go and take a look at what opportunities are available to them. I just got an induction stove. I was in the site looking at what might be possible for me to take advantage of. So definitely encourage you to share this with your residents as much as possible. And this will be updated regularly as new programs come out. The home efficiency and electrification rebates as well are an enormous opportunity with billions of dollars to support this work at home to be more efficient and to go electric. And so we really encourage you to be, again, in touch with your states, since most of this money will flow through the states to local governments, and also with your residents to let them know about these opportunities, and even consider things like streamlining contractor pre-qualifications, et cetera, like solarize, electrify campaigns to help make it easier for residents to take advantage of these rebate programs. Already kind of covered this. I'm going to go a little bit more quickly. I wanted to touch on elective pay. I know this is something that local governments are really excited about. Essentially, now, in the past, if you were a local government who was building a solar project, you were not able to get the 30% tax credit. If you partnered with a third party, public-private partnership, the business partnership would take that credit. This is a way to kind of address that and allow that to happen for local governments and tax exempt entities to get the equal to the full value of the tax credits they would have otherwise been able to get. So just to give you a little bit of an example here, if you invest $1 million in tax credit eligible solar or battery storage or EV chargers or other eligible uses, you can actually get a $300,000 cash payment back from the IRS, which would be 30% of the value of that credit. So this is not a grant program. This is a tax credit. And private sector has been utilizing this for years. So this is the first time that tax exempt entities will be able to take advantage of this program. Really encourage you to take a look at the variety of different types of tax credits that are eligible, and know that you can combine the tax credits with other DOE funding that you receive. So if you receive a grant, to implement a solar project, you can still get the 30% tax elective pay tax payment on top of that. Sorry, I did want to just point out the website there, the irs.gov/elective pay, which is where all the latest information is about this program. And again, really encourage you to take a look at it. To get 30% back on the cost of your clean energy projects is a big deal. And then lastly, just a few other resources. We do have a variety of workforce programs. Many of them are running through the state energy offices. So again, if this is something you're interested in, I would encourage you to reach out to them to learn more, as well as to institutions of higher education and nonprofits in your community that may be interested in serving as training centers or career skill centers. If you're in an energy transition community, we are part of the team that's managing the interagency working group on coal and power plant communities, really identifying those locations where there's challenges that are being posed to the community from their historical reliance on fossil fuels for jobs and economic opportunity. So the IWG is launching these rapid response teams to focus in on some of the higher priority areas where that transition is having an economic impact, and supporting communities and making investments for additional transition in the future. Similarly, we also now have a new department, Office of Community Engagement, or OCE, that is not just in SCEP, but really works across the entire Department of Energy to help with community engagement. So they can be sort of the front door to helping folks find funding, find resources, find the right opportunities for what they want to accomplish on the ground. So this is a new opportunity for you, if you don't know where to go, to come through this door and get referred to the right place. And lastly, we have, again, a variety of technical assistance. Our website, newsletters, tools, these resources here like SLOPE that can help you do some scenario planning for your community and understanding sort of carbon emissions over time. The LEAD tool that's looking at low income energy burden and helping you to identify where that exists in your community to sort of prioritize those who need the help the most. And then we also have a couple of different programs like that focus on, for example, correctional facilities or wastewater facilities, those types of facilities that are often owned at the municipal level through the Better Buildings Challenge and Better Climate Challenge, as well as other resources for local governments, for states, for K through 12 school districts, et cetera, with, again, a wide range of webinars, toolkits, resource guides. So all through our state and local solutions center that you can visit at any point and navigate through. But if you'd like information coming right to you, I would encourage you to sign up for our email updates to get our monthly newsletter that really puts a spotlight on some of those new opportunities and resources for you, as well as our website. You can always visit to get more information. And we are now also on LinkedIn and putting information out there on a regular basis as well. So with that, I'm going to pause. I'm sure there's lots of questions. And I know, again, that was a lot of information.
Christine, thank you. That was a lot. And
yes.
One of the reason I asked, just because as the U.S. Conference of Mayors, when you concluded, we all were saying, okay, we will have this on our portal so we could go back and look at the presentation. And if you're a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, you could access it on the portal. But then being a little seasoned, I thought, well, if they give it to us, and this is the Energy and Environment Policy Committee for the largest one in the nation, it'll be in our portal. So you notice she went through all of that. And I was wondering, when was she coming up for air? I was like, I stopped writing about halfway through this presentation and thought all I could do is have it delivered as the chair on our behalf of MPO, because I had asked perhaps Brian or Sarah, I wanted to have you map. You made thing about 2 states taking you up on technical assistant, and I thought you said 40 cities, and I was amazed. I would love to have seen a mapping of those 40 cities or how many have taken it up, because as I said, we have 191 cities just in one MPO. And as you notice all of these presentations, it was very little in California. So I felt just to give a shout out, I have my interns on, as well as the staff, as well as all of Sandbag's transportation yesterday, listening, because my interns, and I want to acknowledge them, I know that they're on, Genesis, who is my intern in environmental, she's at North Carolina A&T. I just checked, she's on. And then I have Owen Napper, and he's my intern, and he's at UC Berkeley, and he's on. And then there's one in Atlanta, Clark, because you notice there was a lot of stuff about interns and students and things they can do. Use that resource if you have your students are in college. So I'm going to open this up for any questions anyone may have. And I hope I'm running this in the right order. I didn't know if we, Madam Clerk, were we supposed to see if there's anyone on remote wanting to ask questions first? What's our first in the room? Thank you, Rachel. So with that said, I'm going to go with Margaret. And I'm informal, so guys, please.
Okay. Okay, we're all concerned about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And my concern on page 228 of our packet, I don't know where it is on you, but it's under Communities Lead Cohort 2. And it says this opportunity is open to low-income, energy-burdened communities that are also experiencing either direct environmental justice impacts or direct economic impacts from a shift away from historical reliance on fossil fuels. And my concern is that we need to look at clean energy choice. We're getting away from fossil fuels. I'm fine with that. But there are ways to make clean natural gas, for example, from the organics. I don't know if you realize, but in California, we have to recycle every bit of food waste. And so there are ways, they've proven there are ways to make clean natural gas out of that. And for example, from an equity standpoint, my lowest bill is I think my gas bill was $19 or something, whereas the electricity is $250, something like that. And my problem with this push away from all electric buildings, everything electric, you're going to have a monopoly, no competition. They can raise the rates way high. And the people that are low income, that are struggling right now, we have a huge homeless problem here in California, and I think across the nation. And so my question is, do you include in your profile balanced energy? For example, I have a heavy Asian community, and we have a lot of Asian restaurants, and they love the natural gas stoves that they can cook there. And as long as it's clean, I don't see why we can't push for the clean energy choice.
So that for Communities Leap, I'm getting my voice echoed. Okay, that's better.
Should I
no, I don't know what it was there, but it's gone now, so it's okay. Just for Communities Leap, the focus really is, again, so it's low income and energy burden, and then it's either a community that's an environmental justice community or a community that we refer to as energy communities, but where, there's been a closure, right? Where there's been a coal mine that's closed or a coal-fired power plant that's closed, where that historically had provided a lot of the jobs and economic opportunity in the community, and now that is gone. And the community is now looking for, well, what is the future for us, right? If coal is not coming back, or this coal facility itself anyway is gone, what is the future for us in this community, right? So one example is Cuesta, New Mexico, is currently a part of the first Communities Leap program, and they had a Chevron plant that closed, and so they're now looking at green hydrogen. And seeing if that's something that could be located in their community that could help provide jobs and economic opportunity, and actually repurpose some of the land that was previously used by Chevron. So that's the kind of thing that this is really looking for. It's not saying, please move away from fossil fuels to join this program. It's saying this has already happened to your community and you're now looking for support in figuring out what's the future for you, where do you go from here, and what are those opportunities. And it's cross-cut. Again, it's not just, it's all the DOE offices. So there's nuclear involved, there's manufacturing involved, there's hydrogen involved, there's clean buildings, clean transportation, et cetera. So folks can come with us with a variety of interest areas, and this program can help them pull that together, that support together to take the next steps.
But I understand what you're saying, but my question is, are you pushing for everything to be electricity? That's a problem in the DEI community.
I'm not gonna speak on behalf of the entire department. We do have a lot of programs focusing on electrification and decarbonization, because that is how we primarily do hit those decarbonization goals, is by moving off of fossil fuels that are the primary generator in the buildings, transportation, and industrial sector. So that is part of the focus. I think a balanced approach is, definitely still part of what you'll see across the Department of Energy, but I can't get into specifics with you about, monopolies and things like that. I'm not allowed to pontificate on DOE sort of positions in that level of detail.
If I could just jump in and add to that comment, Margaret. One of the things, the departments of energy gets their directions from the legislative body. So when you want to make sure, I feel we want to make sure that there should be multiple paths. And that's part of what the conversation was in DC. We really need to be just kind of like talking to the choir. We need to be moving to the legislative body. And that's what we concluded at our activity with the water U.S. that it's time. And we were really dealing with, that first day was PFAS and PFOA. I was just like drained when, and realizing I've learned being with government that the departments of energy, transportation, all of them, they get their directions from the direction of the body, the elective. So I appreciate Christine being very diplomatic, because she can't really change the marching orders or directions until they're, and I just wanted to add, and I'll share it. I said we also did the Department of Treasury, and because Treasury is overseeing the disbursement of the money. And it was brought to my attention, to your point, and I'll be happy to share a letter that I sent to Secretary Yellen, because the codes that drive from a industry perspective, we discovered that someone brought to my attention, because we're doing multiple things, hydrogen, everything, renewables, that some codes were not in the NAGAC. And I wrote a letter under my signature informing that I felt that they needed to add these codes. And one of them was natural gas distribution. And the other one was for oil and gas pipeline and related construction, because we need to realize that we're moving in our community. But I don't want to take that. I wanted to, any other questions? I think I have Daniel.
Hi, Christine. First and foremost, great presentation. Thank you for the amazing amount of valuable information. My two-part question in regards to the Justice 40 program that we've been following very closely. The Justice 40 tool that's online, is it safe to say that's pretty accurate and up to date? Part one, and then part two, if your city doesn't pop up on that, or your jurisdiction doesn't pop up on that, does that automatically like disqualify you from that program, or can you still try and find out if you qualify for that?
So just for others who may not be aware, I think you're referring to the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, otherwise known as CJUST.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So I'll put a link to that in the chat, just for folks who may not be familiar with it. So CJUST is the best tool that we have so far, but it is not perfect, right? First and foremost, it focuses on census tract information, and census tract information isn't necessarily available for places like the territories or tribal lands. So it's not perfect. So like for Communities Leap, for example, we are asking folks, the definition for environmental justice is if you're showing up on the CJS map, but we actually have a full explainer that says if your definition of your community doesn't align with the census tract information that's provided here, or if you have another alternative state definition or other definition of why you think you are eligible or your community does qualify as an environmental justice community, please tell us what that is. So we're not prohibiting people from applying. We're basically just saying, explain to us what the data is that you have or the justification that you have for explaining, how and why you think your community qualifies as an environmental justice community. But that being said, CJust is sort of the best that we have and is now being used pretty much across the federal government as sort of the definition of disadvantaged communities.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Christine. I just had a question. In my community, we have a lot of very older homes, sometimes 100 years old, and they're, as we struggle to keep up with the energy needs, we're building out our grid a little bit more, but also, how do we work on that efficiency? And I saw you have a few programs, the home efficiency and electrification rebates. Are those, I guess I'm looking for a little more information. Are those grants? I know one of those is rebates. Are there other programs within the other programs that you mentioned that might help people out with those retrofits?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I would mention, getting my echo again. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. The first one I think is always the most important to mention is the Weatherization Assistance Program, or WAP. That's been around for 40 plus years and is sort of the biggest and most well-known home improvement program. And so that's run primarily through your state, but does trickle down into usually local nonprofits that are doing that in-home installation of weatherization services. So I would highly recommend making sure that you're taking full advantage of that. Through the infrastructure bill, there were also enhancements that were made to the Weatherization Assistance Program. So for one thing, for example, for years, people have said it's a problem if a home has other sort of structural needs that are prohibiting it from getting weatherized, but the weatherization dollars doesn't let you address those other needs. There's now a new enhancement program that allows those, let's say a leaking pipe, to get fixed so that it's not creating mold. And then when you weatherize it, the mold gets worse because now everything's tightened, right? So you can actually, fix that pipe, do the mold remediation and then weatherize. So there's no new funding that's available to kind of enhance the program to go even further. So that's always my first recommendation. But yeah, secondly, the rebate programs, they're really at the consumer level. And so this is why I'm encouraging local governments of like, you can't take this money and give it to your residents. They have to go after it, but governments can play a really important role in, promoting the opportunity and making sure residents know about it. And as I said, if we've seen solarize campaigns be successful, I think electrify campaigns can also be something that governments can play a role in doing some contractor, who are the contractors in your community that can do electrification and do efficiency. If they're not there, like start working on figuring out how to get them there and get people trained and reskilled. And then secondly, get them pre-qualified so that when someone's at home and saying, well, I'd really love to, upgrade my home to be more efficient, I don't know who to call, or I'm getting, I don't know if this quote I'm getting is a good one. There's actually a pre-vetted place for them to go and know that they're getting a good deal. So I think those are ways that you can kind of intervene in that space.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Jennifer, I'm trying to read upside down.
Thank you so much. And thank you also for the excellent presentation. Just a follow-up. I'm wondering if you offer toolkits for cities to link, or communication toolkits for information officers so that it's nice and clean. I'll turn it off.
It's a great question. It's something that we've been thinking about trying to create as part of a technical assistance offering. Because I've said this enough to places where I'm like, you should have an electrify campaign. They're like, why don't you create a branding and create communications materials and just give it to local governments to help them run it? I'm like, yep, that is definitely something that would make sense. So it is on our list of ideas for support that we can provide. We don't have it yet, but hopefully we will.
Thank you so much. It would be really helpful to have a centralized a contiguous message so that cities aren't messaging inappropriately on accident. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lauren, sorry.
Thank you. And thank you, Christine. My question is about the tax credits available for consumers. So that's for through the end of December, or is that in 2024 also? Because I noticed that I happened to look at the Tesla site and they say we have this great $7,500 tax credit, but we don't know if it's going beyond December 2023, because of course they want you to buy a car now.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any deadline for, oh, sorry, I'm getting my echo again. I'm not aware of any deadlines. It may just be based on tax year, that they're trying to get, as you said, drum up a sense of urgency. But let me just double check here. Starting January 1st, 2024, yeah, $7,500. So starting January 2024, the tax credit can be transferred to the dealer to reduce your upfront purchase price right at the dealership. So maybe that's what they're promoting, instead of the rebate coming to you, the rebate can go to the dealership starting in 2 months.
What it says is that through the end of 2023, you can possibly get a tax credit of $7,500 if you qualify by income and you purchase the vehicle versus leasing it. So, they are trying to push you to buy something before the end of 2023. So I was just wondering if 2024, those tax credits would still be available.
Yeah, they'll still be available going forward.
All right, I think that's in the room, and I see Member Bishop, his hands up. So Art, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Deborah. Christine, thank you for a great updated report. I have two questions. The first question may be a SCAG question because it's specific to Southern California. On the top of page 220, you have a slide on the Inflation Reduction Act. And the first item that you talk about is lower household energy bills. For the lady who's paying $200 a month, I live in the desert, we're paying $600 a month. So my question would be, is by any chance, is SCAG actually following, because I don't think it would be at a national level, is SCAG actually following, are we able to lower energy bills in Southern California with Southern California Edison, or is it something we don't follow?
Thanks for the question, Member Bishop. I'm not aware of us following this as closely as would be required to go ahead and answer this question. We can certainly take a look at it, but I don't, as of now, this is not something we're following that closely.
Okay, it seems to me that rather than reducing energy bills, even though there are a number of programs and I take advantage as many as I can, I keep getting increases from Southern California Edison. My next question is on the top of page 226, and it talks about grid resilience. And I have to tell you that one of the big problems, and it may not be a problem in Los Angeles County and Orange County, but in some of the outlying counties like San Bernardino and some of our cities outlying, is we have a tremendous amount of growth of different products. One for us happens to be an all-electric train coming from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. And the problem we're having in building a couple of very large buildings, a million square foot plus, a number of them actually, we're having real problems being able to make sure that Edison has the power through the grid to be able to provide for the construction that we're hoping to be able to put into place. And I noticed we have a funding of $10.5 billion. Maybe Christine, you can explain, is Southern California Edison a part of that? Or maybe SCAG can explain if they're aware of if Edison's a part of that.
I cannot speak to the applicants to this program. We only share the selected winners once that's announced. So I couldn't tell you at this moment. The winners have not been announced yet. I couldn't tell you who has applied. But if anyone in the collective audience knows that their community has applied, then they should speak up. Otherwise, I would say that this is an opportunity. Again, there is another round of this coming in 2024. So this is certainly an opportunity to, if you have concerns and challenges related to your grid. I mean, this is a drop in the bucket. The grid is already very old, and keeping up with our existing demands on it. And then you add in, as you said, new electrification of buildings and of vehicles is going to put more demand on it. And then you factor in, the impact that climate change and disruptive events is having. We really need to put a lot of investment. And this is not the only grid program. This is just the only one that's available to local governments to participate, and other partners as well. So if there's a larger grid interest, we could make an introduction to our grid deployment office in DOE, who could give you a more comprehensive look at all of the grid investment and improvement programs that they run.
Okay, thank you. And would SCAG staff be aware if there's anything for our Southern California Electric that they're looking at to help improve the grid?
No, but Edison has reached out to us to kind of discuss this. And so we're working to schedule an upcoming presentation with them to kind of see what their overall roadmap is out through 2045. And so when we have that discussion with them, we can certainly ask.
And Deborah, just for the future, for our own committee, I think that would be, if that's something that we can work into an agenda, either at a staff presentation or an Edison presentation, because I actually believe that the grid issues are affecting all of Southern California, not just more regional issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Art. I don't know, I was going to ask Clerk if there's any other hands up, but while I'm looking, I would just like to say, while Ryan responded for SCAG, but just with our conversation of our SBCTA and our COGS structure, that's one of the things we need to maybe look to our COG to be that platform. And I really want to echo, and I kept circling it in this presentation, is the community-based organizations, opportunities to create public-private partnerships and platforms that will allow us to not only access these things, and this is something I'm doing in our community, but allowing us to also help build the workforce. So please don't forget those labor unions and things that have apprenticeship programs. I have International Brothers of Electric Workers, pipe fitters, those who are working in the water industries, that's energy that's needed. So I could go on and on. Like I said, I was really excited. I have students on that are in college. They know where I'm coming from. And then we have our IRAN. And just another thing to add to that, in our city, we have the reliability of the grid, we're all on it, is first generation solars are without batteries. We have a battery farm. And if you'll recall, before Supervisor Ramirez passed, Ventura has a big battery farm right along the 210 freeway. We have to look for the Bright Line, you may need to be in those contracts looking at what she said, where you can put in $1 million for some of the solar and energy and get that tax credit back, but it's to your benefit to have that backup to this, because when the grid goes down, even if you have solar, you go down unless you have a battery. And I'm getting solar now, and I'm 20 years without it. I'm getting it because now they're putting batteries into the package. And I have my mother's home in San Diego. We put solar, and I'm now going with another platform in San Diego. There's Campesino and MAC, and working on helping to retrofit some of the senior homes under grid alternative that did not get batteries. Now they need to get batteries. So, I'm walking and talking and down on the ground. So you guys can always talk to me. But is there anybody else? And again, Christine, awesome. You see the stimulation, 191 cities. You can put that in your report today that you've covered 191 cities in California. Clerk, is there anyone else?
And I didn't even
that
have to
has
leave
their hand up?
Philadelphia.
Madam Chair, I don't see anyone online, but I do believe Member Brock has a question.
Okay, Phil, and then I see
And Ortiz.
Oscar has another question.
I just
Bill?
wanted to emphasize what my neighbor, Councilmember Stark, mentioned, that we really need a federal communication kit because there's so much information here. And the question is, how many residents of each community will never know that all this is available, and there needs to be uniform communication from the federal government, from this department, so that we can help distribute. But if you're asking each city to come up with its own strategy in time, a lot of us are going to be overwhelmed by this. So I just want to emphasize that I think the communication kit is extremely important, and letting all of our residents in each community know what's available to them. In addition to, for instance, I already sent this report to my city manager, to community development, et cetera, but that doesn't determine how much goes out to our public. And I think our residents would like to know that these federal programs are available, and there are grants or different things that they can do, from solar batteries to a number of other things that a lot of people are still oblivious to. So we need that help. Thank you.
Thank
Point
you.
taken.
Thank you. Oscar again.
Sure. I just wanted to request that when we bring up the grid sustainability part, or rebuild or increasing our grid capacity, that we also include IID in that conversation for the Coachella Valley and the Imperial Valley. Thanks.
And good morning, Ed.
Good morning, and thank you. I just want to follow up on this a couple of things. One, on communication. I think that it's extremely important, but the whole thing, everything we're doing now, I even with our city, it's communication, right? And trying to get the information out. I mean, you could take any issue that that's confronting us, and whatever efforts are going on, there are going to be people that know nothing about it. And it is encompassed upon us to try to communicate, but how we communicate and what medias we use is the issue, based on the recipient's use of that media, right? So if we don't know what they're using, we can't communicate with them to let them know what's going on. And I think that that's the difficulty we're always facing. And I think that that has to be part of any type of plan, is what type of way are we going to communicate with people? The second thing, when we started talking about solar years and years ago, I've always said that, we need to redefine how we're transporting energy. We have solar, we have these major power stations that have transmission lines. And so to get that power from one place to the other, we have to now look at right of ways and taking property or utilizing property that's available, and I'm not saying this from a negative perspective. I'm just saying this is the way we've always done things. Yet with solar, it's right there where everybody is at. It's at your local, right? From your house, you can see solar, right? And that's why it was so important to start getting the batteries where we can store that energy. And yes, it changes the economics of energy companies, because if we are to create that energy at the source, right, and store it there, then for the energy companies, it creates a dynamic that they haven't been used to, right? So energy is going to be created, which they can no longer sell to the consumer, because the consumer is creating that energy. Yet from a community standpoint, I mean, when we look around the world and we look at what's going on, and we look at disasters, When you have that energy source right there, then you're no longer dependent on transporting that energy to you, be it through fuel, be it through cars, through power lines. It's right there, and so that energy will always be available. And so that's why it really is important to get batteries at a level that storage could be, and to maintain the communities, especially in a disaster, right? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen, but if that solar if the sun is still out, then you will be able to generate that energy. And for hospitals, for fire stations, for police stations, that is extremely important. Every building that we're building in Signal Hill, I emphasize that it has to be powered by solar. There is not, in our lifetime, there hasn't been a time where the cost of electricity has gone down. So if that is the case, and it is fact, then there should be no expectation that the cost of electricity is going to go down in the future, right? So when we're building our infrastructure, we should be considering the cost of maintaining that going forward, right? And the cost of maintaining is to purchase energy. So if we're building that into our structures, then our long-term costs have been dramatically reduced, right? And they become self-sufficient. When we did our police station, and again, I'm going off the point, but when we did our police station, I asked that we do solar, and people were reluctant to do it. So I said, well, do a cost analysis. Tell me what the repayment period is for that incremental cost to add solar. They did, and they came back to me, and it was 12 and a half years, right? Our solar panels are guaranteed or warranted for 25 years, right? So in 12 and a half years, I've recouped the cost of that. How long is that building going to be in existence? At least 50 years, right? So if that is the case, it can't be too expensive to do solar. In fact, it is less. I mean, it is immediately clear that is the path to take. And that's what we did. And so when we build our library, we do the same thing. So, every building you should be looking at, that's, yes, it's an additional cost, but do you pay it now or do you pay it later? Right. So thank you.
Well, no, thank you, Ed. Phil, you had your card up, was it still? And I don't know if there was any other members, but again, I just would say again, Christine, thank you so much. You can see it, they can sense what I felt. I was overwhelmed, but it was overwhelmed with so much information that we often are not aware, and we're the policymakers. And if we're sitting here and you had me glazed over, I looked like I was like, okay. The only thing is to get it out and then come up with ways, and through our MPOs and our subregions, to figure out how do we help ourselves. And there's ways, and now we know that we're building the infrastructure. And I will say, retiring from Caltrans, and we need to stop with the old way. We use eminent domain, we take something we have the infrastructure now. In order to make electricity and electrical vehicles work, they're going to have to build out the infrastructure on the existing highways. And like I said, our battery farm, it sits on the north side of the 210, right along in the pathway. Maybe it was private land, but the plan will be, so besides just looking for those little electric 20-minute quick charges, work with our Department of Transportation, plan out where you can see these big battery farms along parallel, because you need to store. Think about it as an old generator, gas generator. When you're putting it in the grid, and our grid is old, it goes down, everything goes down. So just word of wise and thoughts as you guys are planning in our subregions. So with that,
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. And if there are questions, which I'm sure there are that come up after this, please feel free to reach out to me.
Please do, because like I said, every time I saw a billion, I was like, oh God. Oh God, guys, we got to go after something. Okay. Thank you, Christine.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Department
All
of
right,
Energy.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ryan, did you have something? This was an informational item. And so I think, thank you guys for the robust conversation. And I don't think we'll just leave it at that. Some of us, please, nothing else, sign yourself up, put your email in on their newsletter and let's make ourselves known to DOE. Let's see. So I think that's it. And now with moving to the chair report, I'm just going to encourage, yeah, wait, before I do that too, our council shared that we needed to go back and make a correction in the minutes for the vote that we took.
We do
Correct?
actually have one more item.
Okay, all right. But I think we wanted to do that now, right, Jeffrey?
Yeah, just to clarify for the record, we had 21 votes approving the PIR. There was a misstatement in the amount, so it was 21 votes.
Okay. Sorry, yes, I jumped ahead. And now we do have one more item number 7. And that is going to be the climate resilient urban greening best practices. And do we have any member of the public that wants to speak on this item before we have a presentation?
Madam Chair, I see no raised hands.
No raised hands. Okay, so Ryan?
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Maya Long, who's one of our Civic Spark Fellows, and she's been doing an extensive amount of research on urban greening and specifically street trees. And so wanted to bring this forward based on the conversation here last month about nature-based solutions. I will say this, we had originally budgeted about 45 minutes for this, so we don't have, I think, the time to go through as much detail as we want, but we do have a recording of a Toolbox Tuesday as well that you can refer to and go back and dive more into this. So I'm going to turn over to Maya. This is a great resource. I think we can still expand upon this conversation in the future. And Maya is kind of our resident expert on this at the moment. So looking forward to your thoughts on this. Go ahead, Maya.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction. My name is Maya. I'm one of the Civic Spark Fellows here at SCAG. In the past year, I have been researching climate resilience urban greening resources, and I have compiled a resource hub on SCAG's website that went live this past July. In this presentation, I would like to speak about this topic, how it relates to some of our resolutions, and a little tutorial on how to use the resource hub that you can bring back to your cities, as well as some other information that can make urban greening programs in your cities successful. Here are the things I would touch on today. So I would touch on how this resource hub fits into SCAG's water action and climate action resolutions, an overview of extreme heat and why it is important to think about, what are some benefits of urban greening, and then how to use the tool that I've put together. The Regional Council has adopted the Climate Action Resolution and the Water Action Resolution. So this resource hub will address 2 of these directives from the Climate and Water Action Resolution. Because we are low on time, I will go briefly over this section. To think about extreme heat and why it's important for us to understand and address, extreme heat is the leading cause of weather and climate change related deaths in the United States. This compounded with the urban heat island effect, which is when, because of asphalt in developed areas, an urban area can have a higher temperature than a non-urban area. It is extremely important for us to think about extreme heat combined with the urban heat island effect to address these issues, as they pose a lot of health risks to our residents, especially the elderly, children, and people who work in high heat during the day. Urban heat islands also is known to occur throughout the SCAG region as well as nationally, but are most concentrated in formerly redlined areas. The temperature in these areas can be as higher as 13 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat waves, when I am talking about extreme heat and heat waves, I am talking particularly about the increasing frequency, the intensifying heat waves that are occurring because of climate change. And so that is what we are talking about when we are talking about the climate resilience part of urban greening and how all of these tools can fit together so that we can adapt to climate change and create a sustainable and very healthy community. Some of the benefits of urban greening that we know about are improved mental health and stress levels, reduced air pollution. They can also provide shade and lowering the surrounding temperature, which means more comfort for active transportation users. So people who use buses, who walk, who bike to work or school. In addition, we also know that urban greening can reduce stormwater runoff, replenish groundwater, reduce electricity use, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and reduce vehicles miles traveled. So urban greening is only one of many urban cooling strategies. Some other ones are shade structures and bus shelters. They are also shown to mitigate extreme heat conditions. And again, when there's a reduction in urban heat, people are more likely to engage in active transportation modes. Some of the other benefits of urban greening in terms of stormwater reduction, management cost, and rainfall interception have already been quantified by some studies. So these are real tangible costs to Southern California communities that they should think about when implementing urban greening programs. So thinking ahead, in my research, I've put together this resource hub for climate resilient urban greening. And when we're talking about climate resiliency, in this research, I have particularly devoted special attention to this topic because in the upcoming century, we will be seeing continuing intensifying heat patterns as well as new environmental patterns that we have not experienced in the past, such as intensifying or lowered precipitation rates, air temperature, and all of those things. And so in this resource hub, I hoped that it would serve as a one-stop shop for a lot of resources that cities can use to implement a very climate-forward, climate-resilient urban greening program. This is where you can find the resource hub on our SCAG's website. I have also pasted it in the chat. So before I go into how to use this resource hub, I want to speak a little bit about urban greening best practices. What are some things that cities should think about, keeping the climate of the future in mind so that we can have the most successful urban greening programs in our Southern California region? So in my research, I've summarized these best practices as such. They are also found in the resource hub. The first one would be right tree, right place. You might have heard of this motto before. It speaks about before you dig, you want to know what's underneath. You want to know what some plant projects are around the surrounding area so that the tree of the right species is planted in the right place and it can grow to full maturity to provide the most benefits to communities. Trees, street trees in particular, also need adequate soil to grow to big canopies that can provide more comfort for people who use pedestrians, people who use buses, and increased canopy have also been shown to increase house values as well. In this way, it is important to conduct a site-specific evaluation to see whether that area is appropriate for the tree in mind. And on the resource hub, I have linked to more resources that cities can use to conduct these site-specific evaluations and things that they should look for. Some other best practices of urban greening would be to plan for the tree care in the first 10 years or until the tree grows to full maturity. This also means planned watering programs. So a lot of urban greening programs have been implemented. There's a big rallying to get volunteers to plant trees, but then these trees are only taken care of for the first few months or so and are left to to use precipitation or rainfall to grow to full maturity. And this is really not sufficient in order to reap the most benefits in the from the initial investment for these trees to grow to full maturity. Another best practice that is also really important to think about would be to select the right species to create a very diverse urban forest. Here, I have taken a screenshot from one of the tools I will speak about later that can help you determine what is the current distribution of species of trees in your city and how you can add to that diversity. This is especially important if there is a breakout of pests to a certain family of trees. And so if you have a diverse urban forest, the other trees won't be as affected. It is also important to engage and collaborate with communities when you carry out urban grading programs, and also plan for post-monitoring and evaluation. These are two things that in my research I have found to be lacking in a lot of urban greening programs. So one, to engage with local communities, it is important to think about, well, if you plant this tree in front of someone's house and they don't really have any means to take care of that tree, what is the plan for continuity of care for this tree? Who is going to take care of it? Is it a nonprofit organization that the city contracts with? Is it the city? But residents, can't be expected to take care of these trees on their own without collaboration, without agreed upon understanding. And it is also very important to get more post-planning, monitoring, and evaluation so that we can evaluate the successes and share out the successes of urban grading programs. So in the Resource Hub, I have linked some more information on how to carry out these practices. This is where you can find it on our page. On the Resource Hub, I've also linked some management plans and ordinances that some sample ones that cities can look at. So an urban greening management plan establishes a shared vision for an urban forest rather than tree ordinances, which are more like city rules that can create standards and procedures for certain sections of trees, perhaps in certain locations. And I have linked some samples of urban greening management plans and tree ordinances, as well as how to create these items for cities with low capacity. Here are a few samples of urban forest management plans that are linked on the Resource Hub. One is from the city of Sierra Madre, and one is from the city of Santa Monica. I've also, like I mentioned, linked some information on how to create tree ordinances as well for specific purposes. So this section that I want to talk to you about is tree planting in a changing climate. So a lot of these resources that I've compiled together, other organizations have also compiled, except for specifically looking at climate resilience, urban greening. And this is something that I really hope the EAC committee can take back to their cities and have them start thinking about, because it is really important for the future of our urban forests, and most importantly, the future of our health in Southern California. So a lot of the trees that are being planted today are not really projected to known to be survive in the new temperatures, precipitation, and water supply that we have in the future. Particularly with climate change, heat waves will intensify, and the water supply, some areas will experience more drought, but in general, we will see a lot more erratic water patterns, rainfall patterns. There will also be unexpected disease frequencies that we may not have seen in the past. And so climate change is projected to cause all of these changes. And so our urban forest is at risk. And in the Resource Hub, I have included a lot of tools that you can use to help future-proof the urban forest of your city. Some of the key things to consider when you want to think about climate resiliency in urban forests would be get to know your locality, get to know your locality's specific climate hazards by mid to end of century, or even right now. And I would talk about some tools that can help you do exactly that. But some things that you can look into would be, what are some new temperatures that we will see in the upcoming decades? What are some new rainfall patterns? Will your city experience greater flood risks? And these things can help you inform how to form your tree list. So for example, if your locality is known to, is expected to have more drought in the future, you might be thinking about creating a tree palette or a list of trees to plant that have low water requirements or are drought tolerant. Perhaps you can also look into trees that will be tolerant to multiple water levels so that they can handle a lot of water and little water. Or trees that are temperature adaptive. Especially in Southern California region, you might also want to think about selecting trees that are known to have a tolerance to salinity or salt level in the water, because we use a lot of recycled water, and the recycled water tends to have a higher salinity level. So what are some tools that can actually help you accomplish these things? I have linked on the Resource Hub pretty much all of these tools. The first one is called Risk Factor, and this website is a very handy one. It shows you the projected risk factors, including flood, extreme heat, fire, and wind factor of your city. You can put in a city, I believe you can put in a county, a zip code to see all these things laid out, and it explains in very plain language what these risk factors actually mean for your city in different time intervals. Another tool would be called CalAdapt, and it provides you with projected mid-century and end-of-century average annual maximum and minimum temperatures, annual average precipitation. It also breaks down by cities, counties, congressional districts, and other boundaries. So it is a very extensive tool to look at. Some tools that are linked on the Resource Hub could help you identify priority areas for urban greening in your city. So it is likely that to address DEI issues and also funding issues, you might want to consider prioritizing specific sections of your city for urban greening, or you might already have in mind which sections of your city that can use a lot more urban greening. So some of the tools that are linked on the Resource Hub can help you identify these areas. The first one is called the USDA Forest Service tree canopy data. They use data from Earth Define that goes into really small, like 60 centimeters spatial resolution, and it overlays tree canopy coverage data, ozone and particulate matter or PM 2.5 pollution information, as well as Cal EPA's Urban Heat Island Index and other public health indicators into a map. Another tool you can look at would be the California Healthy Places Index Extreme Heat Edition. So it shows data on social conditions that drive health, such as education, economic opportunities, air and water, and additional factors. So this map is also very handy. It gives you a lot of information about what extreme heat will look like in the future as well on this continuous map where you can look at all of California all together and compare different localities. You can also look at, this is a new tool, it's called the California Urban Forest Inventory. So if you want to know where the trees in California are, which parts of the city, this data set on 7 million trees, and it includes both public data from cities and private organizations. It is updated once a year. And this is where, because of this data set, we now know what percentage of trees are on public land and on private lands in a certain city. So very useful information to have urban planners build out urban forest programs for your city. There's also the urban tree detector, which actually it is because of this tool that we can know which percentage of a tree is public and which is private, very similar to some of the other tools that we've discussed that lets you see specific locations of the trees in your city. So all of these tools are linked on the resource hub that I've just mentioned. In terms of how to specifically think about the future and how to climate proof or future proof your city when it comes to protecting the urban forest and creating a really urban forest that will survive now as well as the future, there are some things that I've linked on this presentation and the resource hub that can help you do these things. So one, these are specific presentations from experts that have studied this topic in particular. And so it is also important to note that the science of climate resilient urban forests, or how to think about the new temperatures that cities can take into account to build out urban forests, is a very new science. There is limited literature on this topic, but there are some actors in this space, particularly researchers from universities, that have looked into this topic. And so I have linked on here some presentations by them where they speak more specifically about what their process would look like if they were to try to come up with a tree palette for a city. But primarily it involves something along the lines of looking at let's say if you select a certain species and you like that species, where is that species known to live? What are the temperatures that is known to survive or thrive in? And then look at your own city's temperatures and the new temperatures and seeing if this tree is expected to survive in the new temperatures that your city will have. So this presentation goes into much more detail than that, but I will only go over this briefly in this presentation, and I can also address some questions at the end. Some other tools where if you would like to think about how to create a tree palette with even more speed, there are some resources that have put together sample tree palettes that are going to be helpful for Southern California region. The first one is the Planting Resilience paper by UCLA and tree people that have already created a suggested list of climate-ready trees for Los Angeles. And these are all really amazing tools to look at if you would like to help bring this process to your cities. I will skip through some of the rest of the resources, but you can find them on the resource hub that I've linked in the chat. And before I end the presentation, I just want to really quickly address the question of native and non-native trees. So I know there's a lot of support for native plants. And in this presentation, I have primarily addressed street trees, which take a long time to grow. And so we're not talking about shrubs or grasses. And while in my research with interviewing researchers and experts on this topic, I've learned that species diversity is extremely important to create resiliency in an urban forest. And so since that is the case, it is really important that cities consider both non-native and native plants for their ability to withstand the future climate. I've also linked on this presentation a specific part in an expert's presentation where they address this question specifically if you would like to learn more about considering native plants for your urban greening projects. Thank you so much for your attention today and for having me here. And I will now take questions.
Maya, thank you for that presentation. Wealth of information, so much appreciated. And I think somebody's already reached out to you in the chat because would love to have this given I'll say in our community. So looking for questions in the room, and I think I'm going to start with Phil first, and then I see Ed, he has his thing up, and Lauren. Okay, that's the order. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It's valuable and good for every city in our region. In Santa Monica, you showed our urban forest plan, which I thank you for. I always like the plugs. However, we didn't go far enough because we really needed to have a private tree ordinance as well. And that's equally important. So we realized that deficiency. We're aiming to categorize every private tree and make sure that there are much stiffer standards to be able to remove a private tree that may indeed be historic. A couple of years ago, we had a sycamore tree in Santa Monica that had been there over 100 years. Well, the owner, of course, new owner came in to his property and said, "Oh, who cares about the tree? I want to build a bigger house." So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to look at both standards, not only our public trees, but our private trees. And in my city, we have a huge amount of very tall urban grasses, palm trees. And none of those, while everyone identifies Santa Monica and much of Southern California with palm trees, they do absolutely nothing to help climate resiliency, to help cooling in our houses. You know, you see that when you stand under a tree on a hot day and the temperature automatically decreases by 10 degrees. I think that is a huge climate necessity that all of our communities have to work toward increasing the forest in our city. Our urban forest in Santa Monica has gone from 22% to 14% in less than a decade. That is horrendous. We are losing trees. We're building, our required housing. But in that required housing plan from the state, there's no tree ordinance there. So we now end up getting buildings with one or two trees by the street, but nothing else where there used to be trees on that block. And we're creating streets that people don't want to walk down. And that's a problem. So thank you for your presentation. There's a lot to be gained from the data you put in. And let's hope we all take efforts to increase the amount of urban tree forests we have, because especially, as you mentioned, in low income communities, those heat islands become omnipresent. And cities don't always look at the entire encompassment of their city and plant trees where they're really needed. Thank you.
Sorry, Mia, thank you for the presentation. I really, really did appreciate it. I'm going to take this back to my city. We do have a tree master plan. We categorize all our trees. I want to use this and have those to compare the data that's here, because anyone outside of our city doesn't have our city master plan. They may come to SCAG as a resource, and so you want to make sure that the information in it is consistent in both places. But also, I think it is a valuable resource tool. I had some questions that you actually answered in the presentation, because as we're building stuff and we're especially doing storm water mitigation and all that, we tend to look at historical data for the planning and construction of those projects. But this allows us to look forward, right? What do we expect to happen, especially in the sense of rainfall or any other type of thing. And so we want to build those structures that are going to meet our future needs and not our past needs. And so I want to thank you for having that information in here, so we can take a look forward when we're planning.
Thank you. Laura.
Thank you. And Maya, thank you so much for this presentation. When I read it last night, I was busy sending the link over to our various staff members at the City of West Hollywood. First, I just want to say it's very timely because the governor just recently signed SB 306, which is an extreme heat action plan. For people who are not familiar, apparently this is not currently, an extreme heat action plan is not currently in the state's climate adaptation strategy, and so now it will be. Moving forward, I think 2026 they have to start showing how the state is dealing with extreme heat. So this is really timely, and thank you for that. Also, in West Hollywood, I had brought forward an initiative on a tree policy for residential properties and commercial properties, because we are losing a lot of our trees to development, especially in our residential areas. And apparently our staff had brought back something to our planning commission last week, and a number of developers stood up against it, saying, well, we can't do this. This will make it harder for us to build housing, even though the trees wouldn't be anywhere near where, it wouldn't infringe on the actual area where a building would be. And so we are really up against a lot. And I think until the state takes a better, stronger stance to, again, meet competing interests of environment and housing, we're just going to be in big trouble, because every developer is going to just say, sorry, this state law allows us to do this, and we don't have to worry about trees. So I would suggest to this group, that we talk to our assembly members at the state level and our state senators to start looking at housing policies that also include a consideration of environment and tree canopies and extreme heat, so that incentives are for both and not just for one over the other. Because until they incentivize, the incentives are include both extreme heat and housing together, we are doomed. So I don't want to sound so doom and gloom, but we really have to all be on the same page. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. So, but thank you very much, and I'm hopeful.
In my early years on the council, I got passed an ordinance where if you took one tree out, you have to put two in. My question you had a lot of websites. Is there a website that you could put in either your address or your city and say, what trees would you recommend to put on this street even? Is it down to that micro managing at all?
No. So the answer is we don't have a tool for that, because the science of climate resilient trees is an evolving one. And so, but I would really encourage you to take a look at the resource hub, because there are many, many resources on there that I have also included a little description of what it can do for you, so that it can help speed up the process of creating a tree palette for certain streets.
Okay, I believe we have a question remotely, and I'm looking at Councilmember Lister.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
It's actually Councilmember Crosswhite, Member Crosswhite. We're both here at the same remote location. So part of it is an observation. It's interesting because we recently had the folks who are talking about preventing wildfires out, and their picture looks the complete opposite of the image that was on the slideshow with all the nice green trees. And so it's an interesting conversation around the urban greening and the wildfire prevention and hardening. And in their model, it was 20 feet of concrete, and then you might have a tree, and yet we know that houses these days are being built 5 to 10 feet apart. So it's an interesting conversation, I guess, on how you do urban greening in environments where things are not very far apart. So where do you put the trees other than in the parkway? The other thing that I would like to see this is a really great tool for the trees piece. And I would like to see us continue the conversation on urban greening around some of the other techniques. I know there's places where they're looking to what vines can you use on concrete, parking structures in order to bring in greenery. There's places where in certain parking lots, there's a mixture of blocks and vegetation in between the blocks. So anyway, I know that there's other ways that different places have gotten creative in their urban greening. So I hope that this is the beginning. We appreciate all the work on the tree piece. And hopefully this is the beginning of some more conversation around what other kinds of best practices we might be able to bring to our cities. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, was there any other hands up that was, because I don't have a full screen.
Madam Chair, I don't see any more hands.
Okay, good. Well, Maya, thank you. I think everyone in the room has had comments, and I just want to say, great presentation. It's something we're working on in our city. We recently, this past 2 Saturdays, I had a presentation from our conservation district. And I'd just like to say, everyone, we've moved into the drought tolerant world and the housing, and we're now finding that drought tolerant system is not all that efficient. Even when you think about, with our city, we've determined that it costs us more to maintain drought tolerant scaping than the mow and blow. And the mow and blow helps with bringing down heat islands. So my interns, and we've been working on this. And one of the other things is we did a ranking of all the trees and the coefficiencies and the best versus the palm tree, which is a grass and does nothing. And I just want to add, we also found that besides the tree, bamboo is a great coefficient. And I said, yes, for bringing some of the negative carbon emissions out. So we've been thinking about how do you maybe grow bamboo on the outer perimeters of some of the land or places and use it also as a buffer on a sound attenuation. There's a lot of things going on. I'm excited with this because we do this weekly. We meet weekly. And one of the things I've kind of said is every developer, they know that coming in, they're going to have a minimum of 100 trees, and they exceed it on the outer perimeter of every development. It's just, that's it. I want to see urban forestries, and that's what I learned was what constitutes an urban forestry is basically been a minimum of 100, and it gets even greater. So stepping into that space, and for those homes, adding the trees in the front in the easement that we usually require also puts some responsibility on us, but it gets the tree, which I've learned, closer to the sidewalks. And then we have, in that easement, we have a responsibility to trim those trees and maintain them. So there's a lot of stuff, and we can all share that, but I'm happy for your presentation. I've already texted them and asked them to reach out to you. We will be meeting. We meet every Friday morning at 10. And if you can't accommodate us this week, maybe next Friday. So with that, any other great information, guys? Okay, I'm going to quickly, we still are good. We're only 6 minutes past. I don't think there's more. I have some announcements, but I'm going to defer to my vice chair, co-vice chair, because he and I went out into the mobile tour in the Valley. Besides me just enjoying being in God's country, I'm going to ask Supervisor Polcante to share some things.
Well, thank you very much. Just wanted to report that this past week we had a SCAG tour of Imperial County. In attendance was Chairman Brown, the chairman's chairman, Mrs. Brown, representatives from SCAG, Mayor Robertson was there, Gil Reboyar, Jan Harkin from Riverside Transportation Commission. Comey went out there, Sarah Jepson, Javiera, David was out there. We had the opportunity to exploring facility that I've lived there all my life and never knew it was there. The California Highway Patrol has a facility, an inspection facility right along the Mexico-US border commercial port of entry. And what they do is anytime a semi-truck comes in from south of the border, which is about 1,900 a day, after the truck has cleared customs for the load and immigration for the driver, then it has to go through the CHP clearance to make sure that this vehicle conforms to California and US DOT standards. I would say that the inspection level that is done is amazing. We were all just surprised that they go to everything from lug nuts to brakes to you name it. We also had an opportunity to see a mobile vehicle that they have, one of several, which they park on sides of highway and they pull semi trucks over at random. You would ask why if they already got checked. By the way, they have to get checked every 3 months. The reason why they do that is because once the vehicle clears the checkpoint station, you never know what change might be made of driver, load, or truck combinations. So across the border, you might have one particular combination. They go to a yard 2 miles down the road, they change the truck, they might get a different driver. So this is a way to check everybody. Lieutenant Martinez with the California Highway Patrol, which is the manager for that facility, spent great time going into detail. I'll tell you what, every time I'm now on the highway and I've got semi trucks on the sides, I feel just a tad more comfortable knowing that mechanically they're in great shape. We had an opportunity to go by the Mexican-US border, look at some of the improvements that are being done for cross-border transportation. We also looked at a Calexico multimodal station that is being built where right now throughout the town, you have Greyhound in one place, local buses in another, local taxi cabs in a different place. The Imperial County Transportation Commission is going to build a multimodal facility where everything is in one place. Interestingly enough, this will also serve from 2 o'clock in the morning till about 6 o'clock in the morning for all those farm labor buses that are pulling up to the border to pick up those that can come and work legally in the US. And so it'll be a facility that will pretty much be used around the clock. Last but not least, we visited a tiny home project. It's a joint project between the Imperial Valley College, the city of El Centro, and the county of Imperial. These are very, very small homes. You could probably put half a dozen in here, maybe more. And the way it is set up, students who are homeless can live there as long as they're full-time students. The county offers full wraparound services with social services, behavioral health, anything they need. The college also offers wraparound services with counseling and anything they need. As long as they stay enrolled, they can live there. The cost was, do you remember what the cost was?
It was very small.
I want to say it's like $200 a month, but then there's subsidies that give them the $200 a month. And so this is, something that other colleges will be looking at. Imperial Valley College, by the way, was recently voted the #1 junior college in the United States. And as so, they received a $1 million award. The beauty of that award is that you are so respected when you get this award that there are no strings attached. You get the $1 million for whatever you think your school will need to improve. That's a vote of confidence, which is really, really good. So if any of you are ever in the area or interested coming out, give me a call. Happy to take you around. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And just again, dealing with the environment, we didn't see the crossing and you didn't mention how many people cross. Pedestrian number is astronomical daily. As he said, people who are actually allowed coming back and forth. And so on the humanitarian point, one of the members shared with me, he had been there and he observes how people are crossing and some of you are aware that the temperature down there, talk about heat islands, can get as high as 124 degrees. And he showed me how people are having to wait to cross. And of course, my thought was, well, you're already on ground, solid concrete. Why not, like we had a Caltrans here in Los Angeles on our big plaza, get those big concrete planter boxes, put a tree in there that can maintain and grow and create a canopy for creating some of the shade. So, guys, I added my little information about tree concerns and a humanitarian gesture. Quickly, chair report. We're having the 14th annual Economic Summit, December 7th, Sheraton Grand, downtown LA. It will explore economic factors that inform Connect SoCal 2024, SCAG's draft regional transportation plan, sustainability community strategy, and generating new jobs to create efficiency gains for commuters, shipping, and travel. Elected officials and city managers of SCAG's member jurisdictions may attend free. Registration is available now. Please go to it at scag.ca.gov/economic summit. And that is it for me, staff. Your report.
Good morning, everyone.
Ryan or Rachel?
I'm Rachel Wagner. I'm a Senior Government Affairs Officer with SCAG. And just to touch on the draft Connect SoCal Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy, we will be hosting, beginning with our very first one tomorrow throughout December, 14 elected official briefings across the region. And these will provide an opportunity for elected officials to preview the draft Connect SoCal plan and provide feedback, ask questions. They're kind of intended to be a little informal for some dialogue. And so you should be receiving information on when they will be coming to your county. The first one is tomorrow in Ventura County, following the Ventura County Transportation Commission. So we hope as many elected officials here with us today will be able to attend that. That concludes my announcement. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any announcements from any of the members? Ed?
Actually, I don't have an announcement. I just have a question. And I thought about it today as I'm driving in. I'm often late or running behind because of all kinds of things going on, right? And so, looking at my GPS, determining how long it's going to take me to get here. And so I'm thinking, oh, shoot, okay, I'm going to get there. I'm running late, but I'm hungry. So I'm gonna stop at Starbucks and get something, right? I know we have coffee here, but I wanted some food. And so I get to Starbucks and it ended up being like a 40-minute wait, right? And so, well, the coffee, right. And so my question, and I know a lot of people come from a long ways off, and I know we serve lunch. However, it's morning, right? And I need some energy. And so I don't know if we've ever thought about having bagels or scones or anything in the morning for attendees. And if we could do that for the different committees, that might be helpful. Then I won't have to stop. And apparently the first Thursday of every month is very crowded at Starbucks.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for sharing that and that feedback. We could certainly kind of take it back to our staff and have it something to be considered for our future meetings, because we do appreciate you all attending in person and we want you to be energized and well fed at all times. So we will report that back. Thank you.
Yes, and cutting into lunchtime, I'm just going to say no meeting next. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was my question. How's the economic summit going to affect our meeting next month? So
that's it. No meeting next month. Okay. So I'm sorry we ran a little over, but you have about still 15 minutes to eat your lunch before the next meeting. Right. Meeting adjourned.